All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time you're watching this video. We are already at the chapter 4 of our discussion about man-made hazards. This can be found in your book from pages 81 to 94. Let us begin. So we are done talking about natural hazards, no? And this point we'll be talking about man-made hazards. The causes of man-made hazards, there are just two. Number one is our interaction with other persons. So in everyday life, it is inevitable that we do interact with them. And of course, every day also we do some interaction with our environment. No? So how come that we are um, producing, or how come that we are um, provoking some sort of hazard? Well, these hazards could either be intentional or unintentional. So meaning to say, this is something that I think is inevitable as long as we do interact with each other. So I think this is the point here, that we do discuss these kinds of man-made hazards so that we can mitigate the impacts, or if possible, we can avoid. Other terms for man-made hazards are anthropogenic hazards, or other literature would use the term human-induced hazards. No? So whenever you see these terms, then you can just interchangeably use them. Let us begin with the first kind of man-made hazard. These are our sociological hazards. Sociological hazards, as I said, since this is a man-made hazard, this can be accidental or this could be deliberate. No? So, for example, overpopulation. Overpopulation is unintentional because, of course, as a human being, you're just doing your biological instinct to reproduce. No, you engage into relationships, so on and so forth. And of course, similar to a single drop of a rain, if you're a single drop of a rain, you will never think of causing a flood anyway, right? So the same thing with this, overpopulation, crowding is not something that you intentionally do, for the sake to cause hazard and later on disaster to other persons. It's just that it so happens. This is a consequence of much reproduction among us. Another example of intentional would be crime, terrorism, bomb threat, etc. So these actions are committed deliberately with some intentions, either to cause disorder or to serve personal interest. No, so these things are the ones, no, that we should avoid, so that and we shouldn't be part of this. All right. So let's learn more about these sociological hazards. Let us begin with crime. This is an intentional, no, crime. This is a deliberate sociological hazard. Now, if we put it in a legalistic context, according to the revised penal code of the Philippines, crime is a category, no, that involves the destruction of life. Of course, that's killing in a simple term. Killing could be a parricide, it could be killing of a parent or other near relative, or it could be a murder, or it could be a homicide. No, so I will not anymore put the borderlines between a murder, between a homicide. But one thing is for sure is that these are all crimes, no, and these are something that is against the law, all right, or taking away somebody else's life. There are also what we call orchestrated by groups, no, crimes planned by groups, and they are done is in unique or specific mode. So like the Budol Budol gang, they are using confusion tactics, like they will use fast movement of hands, or they will be using words to confuse you, or they will be leaving things to you in exchange of something valuable that you're bringing with. So you just have to be careful. So I think the key here is try not to talk with strangers, no? Especially people that you don't know. Another thing is the Salisi gang. They have a modus operandi of stealing or stealing rather valuables. No, so they do steal valuables in established in establishments in commercial spaces. You cannot suspect them enough, no, by your senses because they do dress well, they have in a proper decorum, etc. So some of the members of the group of the gang, they do talk to you, they do entertain you, and then there will be some members of the gang that will be in charge to steal uh, your valuables while the others are talking to you. So be careful with the Salisig gang. The other type of gang is the dugu-dugu gang. This kind of gang is asking money, no? That they pretend to be helpers or family members. They will call you that please send 5,000 pesos right now, or please send this kind of money to this bank account because I met an accident, I met an emergency. So they will either text you, or most of the time they will really call you, no? As if they will pretend, no? So please, if you have some helpers at home, please train them, no, or brief them how you will go about, reporting emergencies, or how do you validate that emergencies are really true, no? So make sure you have this kind of system in your own family. Now, why do people engage in crimes? This is a complex problem. This is a complex sociological hazard. One could be poverty, it could be drug abuse, it could be alcohol abuse, or it could be, you know, a product of unfortunate social upbringing in terms of the negligence of parents. There is development of poor self-esteem, so somebody will just, commit crimes, or even take drugs. And when you're under the influence of drugs, you don't know what you're doing anymore. Or some people just lack values. That's why in school, values education is being emphasized, because this later on can contribute to your future actions. So when you know of a crime, always report it, no, so that it will get documented. So you go to your nearest police station, you file an incident report form or an incident record form, it's IRF, and then that IRF will already be part of the police blotter, which is the record of all incidents in the areas designated under the police station. So, as much as possible, you have to supplement your report with documents, with pieces of evidence like either pictures or video or recording or whatsoever. So safety reminders, please do avoid dark streets, no? Dead ends, talking to strangers, as much as possible. Be with somebody when you're traveling. Do not provide so much information, especially on Facebook. Make sure that your friends are just really your friends, and do not display valuables when you are walking in the street. Maybe you have to wear all your jewelries. Please do avoid that, and do not stay out late. No, go home early. And when you are riding a public vehicle, make sure that you record all the information like the vehicle number, the plate number, and then you text that to your parent or to family. And you try to be observant and be cognizant of the happenings around. The people around who were there, if you can take pictures or videos, that's better. And be mindful of the time, like what time did you go out, what time did you come home, or what time did you leave from your office, etc. So those are our safety reminders. Another kind of sociological hazard would be civil disorder. Now, civil disorders refer to mass incidents of disturbances in the public, which are often in the form of demonstrations that may lead to aggression towards authorities. Now, I just want to emphasize that not all forms of civil disorders are considered to be against the law. There are permitted political protests that aim to express specific issues, no, and concerns towards the government or towards a certain agency. So not all disorders are actually against the law. It's just that some lead to so much violence when misunderstanding arise from communication, and then when people started to be, let's say, involving force already, or some illegal weapons and other materials or paraphernalia. So an example of a civil disorders are riot. No, riot are an unlawful assembly of a group or at least three people. So the group hurts people or authority. No, so when there are already at least three, kung usara na, it cannot be considered as a riot. Or if there's only two of you, but if there's at least three, no, there will be unlawful assembly already. Okay, so there should be permit there, because I think there's a process when you want to do some political protest, no, so please do observe that one. Safety reminders, of course, number one, do not get yourself involved in any unlawful assembly, no? So please, since all of you are Silimanians, then I assume that we do value our character and we do value our integrity, no? But it doesn't mean that we do not involve in protests. What I mean is we do not involve in unlawful assembly, no? Then we report to the police this kind of riots. No, we should know the exit routes of the area. Yes, especially when there's already a commotion there and we don't want to be involved. Please try to identify the exit routes and then keep driving. No, do not pause because you may be involved, and then avoid taking sides during a rally, and of course keep updated whether that place is still experiencing some sort of riot. Then do not go back, no. Be safe, of course, with your family and loved ones. Okay, another example of sociological hazard is a sabotage. Sabotage is intentional action, no, geared towards causing damage. The purposes here could be financial, political, or reputational purposes. So examples of this is you infiltrate a computer network and try to steal information or reveal some negative information against somebody or a company. Or let's say you are an employee, no, with grudges against the company because you have this some request that you were not granted, and so you want to revenge. So these are examples of sabotage, and this is something that will cause civil disorder, since this may lead later on to say um, financial effects, or either political or either reputational, no. So most of the time, um, people use this for political interest, no. They do sabotage, making it appear that somebody else did this and that, no. So that is an example of a sociological hazard, because of course this may lead to a disaster later on. Of course, another common form of sociological hazard is terrorism. So we keep on hearing this word on the TV. Terrorism, this is the use of force or induced fear, no, against innocent people for political purposes, like pressuring the government or civilian population to give in to the demands of perpetrators, no. So using innocent people, no. There are a lot of reasons, no, for terrorism to happen, like demotivating government or the government security personnel that are demotivated, or they have already a different ideology, or they have already like so much demotivation against the government, and you used to be part of the government and you see all the mistakes that the government is doing, so you resort to joining a terrorist group, no. Or you wish to steal money, you want to get arms and more equipment, you want to destroy utility lines, you want to discourage foreign investors, no, especially you don't want that a lot of buildings will rise in that area, etc. And you want to demand release of fellow members in prison, no, so you will blackmail, you will use blackmail. So you'll say that okay, if you don't release this one, I will burn this community, no, taking revenge, and you want to cause panic and disorder. So these are, looking at all of this, no matter what your objective is, but your means here, okay, your means here in conveying your message, this is not something right, no? So you go for a diplomatic one, a more diplomatic, a more rational, a more peaceful way, no? Because they say that peace is not the end, but peace is the way. Okay? So there are lots of terrorist groups in the country. These are some of them. This is the Abu Sayyaf group, the Raha Sulaiman movement, the Jema Islamia, the New People's Army or the NPA, and the Mauti group. No, so for the activities that they do, you may check our book, or you may search some research news clips about these terrorist groups in the Philippines. So safety reminders, one, we should understand the risk of being in public areas, because public areas like buses, in the malls, these are the targets of terrorist groups. No, so like concerts. So make sure if that concert, you attend an event and that event has very low security or police visibility, walay plano, so be careful. Or if you're part of the organizers, make sure that you consider security. Number two, always report to the police something that's unusual or suspicious, but do not also be judgmental. No, because basig most of the time I give my sympathy to our Muslim brothers that they are being discriminated because of their religion. No, so please take note that our Muslim brothers, not all of them, no, are terrorists, no, and not terrorists. Not all terrorists are necessarily Muslim. So let us respect them. Let us love them as fellow Filipinos. But in case that there's really something obvious that is unusual and suspicious, or it could be someone, then report that to authority. Third is you protect your personal information. Do not share your contact numbers to somebody you don't trust. And always have a family emergency preparedness plan, no? Especially when there's, say, a bomb or whatever, make sure that you have that sort. Keep a low profile when traveling. Yes, even if you are truly rich, no, when you do travel, do not expose so much of your jewelries, or you have this cell phones or whatever, or you speak so much. Just keep a low profile. That is for your safety as well. And then be culturally educated. When you travel, make sure you know how to speak a little bit of their language, like saying help, or saying I don't know how to speak this one, or at least you have a background of the culture. No, you are culturally sensitive as well. And then always travel with a companion. And of course, do not join terrorist groups. So no matter what, how much ember is burning in your heart to convey the message you want against the government or against any official, but please always do it in a